One of the bigger moves of the entire offseason as far as coaches or staff goes was the departure of Grabbz from G2. A lot of people like to meme on Grabbz and say that Grabbz drafts suck or that Grabbz wasn't that good of a coach, just G2 was really good or whatever. They try and downplay him in a lot of different ways. And I do think Grabbz obviously has some faults, some downsides. There's some pros and cons to his coaching style, to his coaching abilities, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, I think Grabbz is absolutely an amazing coach. He's a class coach, and he's one of the best, if not the best, coach in Western League of Legends history. Obviously, he's in the conversation just based on his results and everything, but I really do think he is very, very good, and I think when you start looking around, there's not a ton of great coaches in League of Legends esports. It's still very new. Professional players are still trying to figure out things, let alone making it to the coaching level. So I think Grabbz is awesome, and him leaving G2 and headed to Team BDS is an absolutely massive story. And in today's video, we're going to be going over an interview that Grabbz recently had where he talks about, the offseason, the future, things that went wrong at G2, things that are hopefully going to go right at Team BDS. And I think it's very, very interesting. So definitely drop a like if you guys do enjoy this video. I would appreciate it a ton. And subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. When I'm recording this, I have 9,955 subscribers, meaning we are 45 subscribers away from 10,000. If we could hit that in the next 10 days, that'd be absolutely insane. So help us out with that. Click that button. But with that being said, let's get right into this. We have this interview from hotspawn.com. This is from my good buddy, Tom Matheson, coming out with this interview, so it should be a good one. But the title of this is Grabbz Fun League. That is what we want to bring to the table, and obviously that is a very, very good sign for a young team, a more inexperienced team, a team that's probably going to play a little crazy, a team that's probably going to make some mistakes, but also a new organization, a new franchise that is trying to build a fan base, that is trying to get people to watch them, give people a reason to watch them. And if they play a fun, fast, exciting style, they'll definitely win some fans over there. And then, you throw in the mix the fact that they have Grabbz, the fact that they have Adam, they have Limit, they have some, familiar face in the LEC, but then also some K-Corp players as well. It's truly a very, very interesting mix of talent. So some of the questions that I think are interesting here is talking about in the past few days, weeks, whatever, what gears did you have to shift mostly to work with this group? And Grabbz said, it's just what I would call, or what G2 would call, the basic macro concepts. They're not as ingrained here. He's talking about how with G2, those players were all veterans. Those players all got it. They understood the basics of the game. Now, maybe, there was some, team play issues or greater issues overall or, things they needed to work on. But for the most part, they were never, really working on the fundamentals or the absolute basics of professional play, or at least, professional play at the LEC level or at the G2 level, the international level, even a step up from just LEC. So for Grabbz, it kind of seems like a breath of fresh air. He's getting to, those fundamentals and basics that he has ingrained into his own brain and that he ingrained into all the brains of the G2 players. He gets to start fresh because a lot of these Team BDS guys, don't know that stuff. It's a lot of stuff that isn't second nature for solo queue players or ERL players or, whatever. So that is kind of cool, hearing him talk about that. And it seems like he is really, really excited to do this again. He also talks about how he ended up on Team BDS. Let's talk a little bit more about you joining BDS. He says he had something else cooking, actually, which felt pretty good, and I wonder what that is. Because he talks about how he wasn't necessarily interested in coaching, super teams or big-name rosters, so, I don't think it was like a Vitality. I don't think it was like a Fnatic or Rogue or Mad Lions or anything like that, so I wonder what other team, potentially was in contact with Grabbz, and I wonder if we'll ever know, but he does say that BDS entered the offseason relatively late with their search for coaching staff. Basically, they had one meeting and it went really, really well. So even though they started talking late, he's happy with how the offseason went. And I think that's kind of interesting, that BDS was not the first team to reach out to Grabbz, and he was actually excited about another opportunity. But they scooped him up pretty late, and that's interesting because, again, this was a really, really big pickup. This was possibly the hottest, coaching target on the whole market, for really the entire West. So the fact that they ended up with him, I think, is really, really good. He just says that, BDS was willing to move fast and quickly, and they, had a good conversation. So here they ended up. Another very, very interesting question here is they actually asked him about Adam. He said, this brings me to your top laner, Adam. I don't mean to imply that he's a bad guy or anything, but he appears to have a strong personality. That's definitely one way to put it. And there were some clashes while he was at Fnatic. So talk to me about assessing him as a player and a of person, how you saw him fit into BDS. He does say that it's not a secret that he was kind of apprehensive in the beginning for the aforementioned reasons, talking about, I wasn't sure about bringing Adam into Team BDS. He said, but at the same time, I also had to realize that my ideas came from the opinions of others. I realized that I am a bit biased just by his social media game as well, the way he paints himself in a certain way. So, this does go to show you that, yeah, you have to be careful. The things you post on social media, the personality you give outwards, even if people don't know you, and even though it's maybe not your true self, or maybe, it's just kind of a bad day or a bad moment or a bad couple weeks or whatever Adam was having on social media, it's still, potentially almost lost him a job opportunity at Team BDS. Obviously it didn't, but that it is what it is. So yeah, he says he realized he was a bit biased by his social media game and that he paints himself in a certain way. He says, I couldn't protect Wonder from being called a griefer and inter all the time on social media, but I know him better, right? So for me, it's easier to say that he is not that person. He is not someone who doesn't care. At that point, I also have to give Adam a chance to prove himself and tell me why he is not this cocky player that he seems to be. So far, working with him has been really nice. He's a very calm personality in the room as well. He's someone who wants to give others space as well. While he wants to play aggressive, he is happy doing what's best for the team, which is surprising. So yeah, he has been the biggest surprise. So that's good. Grabbz is not worried about the crazy offseason that Adam had. He is excited to have him, and it seems like Adam put out the apology. It seems like, he had some realizations about how he kind of messed up in the whole situation. Hopefully Adam is, done and past that. Hopefully he can get back to playing good League of Legends and, getting in the headlines for good reasons, interesting reasons, not just, necessarily negative reasons. So that is really, really good. They did ask him what he expects from this team in the spring split and potentially the rest of the year. He said, when getting all the players, one thing we made clear and they agreed on is that no matter what, we want to be a team that is fun to watch. We made it really clear that I'd rather have them go for a play, fuck it up royally, and lose the game from it than be the slow and methodical team that is seen as a boring team that doesn't know how to end the game. They kind of call out Rogue and laugh about that and all that, which is kind of funny. We then get into the second part of this interview where there, is also some good questions where, Grabbz talks about, being excited about playing with fresher players, not as many seasoned veterans and stuff, which is already kind of what we talked about. He does talk about how, he was off put from playing with another super team. He said if you would have went to a super team, this is like, hey, say I'd leave G2 and go to Vitality. He says he'd still be, doing the same things that G2 has done for the past 4 years. There's a change of scenery for both him and G2. In the future, he can imagine, potentially coaching a super team again, but for now it's just a different environment. The reason why G2 didn't work out in the end, I think, was you just feel jaded after a while. I was there for 4 years with Wonder and Yankos, Mickey and Caps for 3 years. At some point, you're just sick of seeing each other, and not in the way of saying I don't like each other. So it still seems like they're on good terms, but again, at the end of the day, it just seems like it was good for G2 and everyone to part ways. He kind of equates it to a relationship, which is absolutely true. He said after 3 or 4 years, either you find the fire again or you break up. And I guess we had to break up. I think everybody right now is happy. Even Mickey, I think, this is just his opinion, would prefer being a streamer right now over going through another year of the unit we had. I think it was the best for all of us. That really sounds, makes it sound like G2 was really just not very fun, not very good environment behind the scenes, which I think is pretty interesting, and maybe gives, a lot more context to, obviously, Wonder leaving, Reckless leaving and not seeming on great terms, Mickey leaving and not seeming on great terms, Grabbz, Duffman, all these guys leaving and not seeming on great terms. And, it's going to be interesting to see if G2 can find out and figure out what went wrong and how to fix it going into the future. Maybe it's just new faces coming in, or maybe they have, some culture or more issues going on behind the scenes than we do know. So I think that's kind of interesting. They do talk a little bit about how when Perks left, it was very, very hard to, fill that gap and how they really struggled and how, Perks left and they lost a big voice. And it was hard to replace that big voice because they already knew Grabbz as like not a super big, dominating, scary, voice or whatever. And like Yankos is kind of the joking meme guy. He couldn't just become that strong, Iron Fist leader or whatever. So, they lost a lot of that, ferocity or strong will and stuff. And once people, they can't really change. And he talks about that. So it was a big, big void to fill. And it's still going to be a problem that G2, faces going, throughout the year. And they do talk about how, G2 won the regular season spring split and got second in the summer split. People talk about G2 having this terrible, terrible year or whatever. And it's like, no, they just, for whatever reason, faltered in the playoffs. But this was still a very, very strong team throughout all of 2021. And I do think this is kind of the most interesting part and probably the best way to wrap up the interview. He says, what lessons did you take away from the past year at G2 where the team ultimately did not live up to expectations? And this is really, really cool to me. He says, I would say the biggest mistake for me, and I also think in some part from G2, was that we failed to excite ourselves for the LEC. This is a big thing to me, especially in the spring split. I tried to change it for summer split, but then it was late as well. I fucked up by always talking about, hey, take it easy before MSI, before Worlds, you know? How can I tell my players to give it their all in playoffs when I've been telling them that this LEC thing doesn't matter? Even in the summer split, we said, well, as long as we reach Worlds, we really don't care. We want to win Worlds. We don't really care about LEC. And, you know, he's saying he thinks that was a big mistake. He thinks celebrating the small wins and making parts of their season seem insignificant was a big mistake. And he says, hey, BDS isn't going to do that. You know, BDS, every regular season win is going to be awesome. It's going to be a party. It's going to be, you know, a lot of firsts for this team, for this organization, and it's going to be really cool. And I agree with that so much. You know, like, as a fan, does spring split kind of suck? Is it ultimately pretty meaningless? Yes. But as a player, it's still an opportunity to grow your career, grow your brand, help the league grow, but also level up as a player. You know, like looking at even some of the best players in League of Legends, you know, Western League of Legends history, like Doublelift. Him talking about how spring split sucks and how it doesn't matter and spring split is so stupid and it's trash and whatever. Well, this is the guy who, by the end of the year, was never able to have good results internationally. You know, maybe if he would have been taking spring split a little bit more seriously over the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of his career, overall, he would have been a little bit stronger come the end of the season, come the end of the year. Now, yes, I'm all for, you know, breaks and avoiding burnout and all that stuff, but, you know, it's no kind of, it's not a coincidence to me that, yes, you know, at one point G2 was taking all the splits seriously. They were trying to be dominant. They were trying to win everything. And then as they started to take some points easy, you start to get complacent. You start to lose that hunger. You start to lose that drive. And it's harder to kick it on in the middle of the season. It's harder to kick it on for one tournament. You want to be, you know, at an even level of competitiveness and fierceness throughout the whole year. If you are, you know, a competitor and a winner, you're trying to take throats the whole year. You're not just like, oh, I don't really care about this game. I'll just kick it on later in the season. Because you're going to be facing up against teams that have had it in 10th gear throughout the entire season. And, you know, I think that's something that all Western League of Legends teams can learn from. You know, it's so easy to say spring split doesn't matter or regional titles don't matter or whatever. But if you're trying to better yourself all year, you are trying to dominate the regular season, the playoffs, MSI, the regular season, playoffs, and then Worlds. And that's really the only way to do it. And it seems like that's something Grabbz really, really learned in 2021. And I hope, you know, people are taking notice and people are taking notes. But that is pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate it so much. Leave a comment down below. What do you think about Grabbz headed to Team BDS in 2022? Do you think it's going to be a great move? Do you think they're going to find success? Or do you think Grabbz is overrated? BDS is going to suck? Grabbz is going to suck? I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe, stay up to date on my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.